Hello, friends, and welcome to Escaping the Mouse with your host, me, Breck Roll. All right, today was the first real day on the new job, first non-classroom day, first day with my actual home department, and first 12-hour day. Yeah, it was a long one today, but I think I'm gonna do all right with that. It actually went pretty quickly. So anyway, the department I work for, well, the whole company works 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So the day always starts with a department meeting where they kind of review what happened for the night before. And that gave also the company an opportunity to introduce me to my new workmates, which was kind of nice. I also got, at that point, was introduced to my supervisor, who was going to kind of look after me for the rest of the day. The day started out as I kind of expected it would, with me sitting at the computer and reading SOPs. Got a few more of those taken care of, and I've got all the basic ones that I need to take now completed. There was a list of like 10 of them I got on the first day that I was told I should focus on doing those first. And then there was another list of 10 of them that are directly related to my department that I was told I should focus on first. I got those done, and now I'm just starting to wade through the rest of them, and it's just going to take some time. And so I spent about a half the day up until about lunch break going through SOPs and reading them and just kind of reviewing them, and all that fun stuff that you got to do. It's all part of the job. After lunch, however, I had kind of decided that, okay, my brain has turned to mush. I don't really have any more, cognitive ability to read any more SOPs. So at that point, my supervisor said, okay, well, why don't you shadow the department you're in? The computers were in one of the production lines, and she just suggested, why don't you shadow that department? Now, a little bit of background, because I told you I'm not even allowed to approach my machine until I learn the specific process of doing it. Well, that's because the position I'm doing is right at the beginning of the manufacturing process. And so that's where the real meat of it has to happen. After you get through that part of the process, though, there are other parts of the process that are a little bit more just turning the raw product that comes out of my part of the process into something that's more ready for the customer. It has to be printed on. It has to, the individual product comes out, a whole bunch of the product attached together. They have to be broken into pieces. They have to be printed. They have to be labeled, and all that fun stuff has to happen. And that doesn't have quite the requirements to learn that process as my specific job does. So I was able to just kind of walk up to the machine and kind of observe for a while and watch what they were doing and kind of watch what was going on, and learned a lot about that end of the process. And it got to the point where I actually had observed their part of the process where I could actually help them a little bit. So, what happens is after the product is separated into individual components and printed, packaged, and all that, well, it's not packaged, packaging happens later, but after it's printed and labeled and all that fun stuff, it's loaded into a series of bins, and then those bins have to be removed from the machine. And the machine produces about 500 products every few minutes, and so it pops out real quick. And once all the bins are loaded up, then somebody's got to open up the door of the machine, remove the parts, load in more blank bins for more product to be loaded in, and then move the product to the next stage for manufacturing. And so I watched that happen a few times, and at one point the end of cycle came, and the person who was doing the work was off working on something else. And I said, hey, I've watched you do this. I can probably handle it. Would you like me to do this? And she said, yeah, go for it. And so next thing I know, I'm partially operating the machine. And then a little bit later, this particular machine is a little bit older and tends to get jammed up every once in a while. The product is zipping through there real quick, and if everything isn't perfectly aligned, you get product jammed up. And so what you have to do is, the product keeps coming out of the beginning of the process, and if you don't fix what the jam up is, you get this backup here, and it backs up into the previous process. So what you end up doing is you end up taking the raw product off the line, putting it into a box until they fix whatever the problem is, and then you manually feed it back into the assembly line. And so I started learning how to do that. And then I started learning how to do the process that happens after the product comes off the line. By the end of the day, I actually had a significant part of that part of the process done, to the point where, I was able to do that. And I had a couple of the people say that they were really impressed how quickly I picked that up. So that's a good sign. Even if for some reason I don't, I'm not capable of learning this process that I'm supposed to do, you know what, I can at least move into this. I've already demonstrated I've got a good work ethic. And that's, the person I was working with said, I can already tell you're one of the good ones. So, that's encouraging. If I'm already on my first day getting positive feedback sent to my manager, that can't do anything but help. So, that was what happened today. I also learned something else that's interesting, that's going to kind of make things interesting in the next week or so. This is the end of my week now, so I have tomorrow, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday off, and then start again on Wednesday. But as I mentioned earlier, the company runs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And there's a lot of complicated machinery that has to be maintained for doing this. And since it's running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, that doesn't leave a lot of time for maintenance and repairs. So a couple times a year, I learned today, they actually shut the process down for about 2 weeks and then bring in technicians and basically overhaul all the machines. And apparently one of those shutdowns happens next week sometime. They haven't been able to tell me yet whether it's going to start on Thursday or Friday, but it seems like it's going to maybe be a short week for me. Now, it isn't really going to be that much of a difference, because since I've got so many SOPs to read, they're not going to send me home. I'll just have to go into the computer room and read SOPs for the time. They also said that while the machines are shut down, this is going to allow me an opportunity to actually approach the machine that I'm ultimately going to be working with. So that's going to be a good opportunity also. So I'll probably spend the next couple weeks, starting next Thursday or Friday or whenever it happens, reading a lot of SOPs. And then remember, I told you there's that 140 plus step procedure that I need to learn before they'll let me even go get next to my machine. Well, I'm also going to take some of the time to practice that. Now, the truth is, while there are 140 or 142 steps or whatever it is to the process, many of them are the same step being repeated over and over and over again. Because you got to do something, and then you got to do this, and then you got to do something else, and then you got to do the same thing again. And there's just a lot of repetitiveness to it. And in reality, if you think about it, there's a very logical organization to it. So it's not like I have to remember 142 different steps. There's maybe 15 or 20 steps, and a bunch of them are just repeated over and over again. So, and there's 3 or 4 or 5 of them that are the issues that I'm really having a problem with, that are going to be really difficult. So I think instead of trying to go through and study it by performing all 142 steps in order, I'm going to focus on one of these complicated processes that I have to perform, and I'm just going to go in and do it over and over and over and over and over and over and over again until I master it. Then I'll go to the next one that's a little difficult, and I'll practice that one over and 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 over again until I've got that one mastered. And then I'll just repeat that for all the individual steps. Then when I get to the point where I'm ready to begin, practicing the whole thing, then I'll know that these individual steps that are giving me trouble right now, well, I'll know how to do that, and I'll be more comfortable with it. And then it'll just be a matter of remembering each of the individual steps. And the individual steps, like I said, there are a lot of them that are just repeated over and over again. So I think that's a good approach for me. I'm going to discuss it with a guy who's training me, see what he thinks, see if I can get a little one-on-one time with him to get him to help me work with these individual processes, and so I can master them as quickly as possible. Because one of the things I've learned is that my department is horribly understaffed. And so they're really in need of getting people going as quick as possible. And they're hiring left and right. So anything I can do to expedite the process of me being able to get into the department and be productive is something that's going to be good for both me and for them. And I think they'll appreciate the fact that I'm working so hard to make that happen. So I think that's the approach I'm going to take. I think that's going to be a good approach for me, and so we're going to go forward with that. One other thing, I got a couple of photos from Beth today and a video today of that she shot of Flash hanging out in her yard. So I'm going to show those photos and those videos now, just so you can kind of keep up with Flash, because I know everybody here likes to see Flash. So I think that's all that I have for today. Thank you as always for watching, and I'll see you next time on Escaping the Mouse. Good night.